He's my favorite character in the world. I love Eric Dacia. In fact, one of my children may be named after the character. I'm just putting that out there. That's how much I like X-O Manowar. We're getting the next series, X-O Manowar Unconquered, #1, coming out at the end of March. But there is a review copy out there, and it was shared with me, and I did want to give you guys my thoughts. But Wes, this is your favorite character. He hasn't had a series in quite some time. You must be very excited. Well, I am very excited that Liam Sharp is on the art. I mean, I'm not gonna deny that. A Liam Sharp illustrated X-O Manowar comic book series is something that dreams are made of. But it's written by Michael Conrad and Becky Cloonan. Cloonrad ain't exactly the top of the hill when it comes to comic book writers. In fact, I would say that they're very, very low on that. I can say this. I will say this up front before I can get into some of the details, and I will not spoil the story. It's better than their Wonder Woman series. No doubt about it. It's better than their Batgirl series. So at least it's not terrible. It's not good either. Well, it is all subjective. It is good art. I will give it that. I would have preferred Liam Sharp to use his old school comic book style, but Liam Sharp's new, digital painted style is absolutely phenomenal, and it looks really good here. The only problem is, and the biggest problem with the book, is Eric Dacia, if you just want to make it kind of simple, X-O Manowar is Conan the Barbarian in an Iron Man suit. You know what I'm saying? He is a man of action. He is absolutely a warrior through and through. And there's 2 pages of action in this entire comic book. Now, they do look good. He is fighting an enormous beast, I think that he calls a Leviathan or something like that. When Liam Sharp is able to do something exciting with the character, it absolutely does look great. And as you would imagine, Liam Sharp on an X-O Manowar comic book, it was going to be hard for him not to do well on this. It's right in his wheelhouse. Everything that Liam Sharp has ever done that's been fantastic works for this comic book series. He has good layouts. He does the best that he can with the script that he's given, which isn't all that imaginative. So when he's creating character designs, when he's creating these worlds and stuff, when he's showing some of the stuff going out in space, it looks good. There's no denying that. And certainly, if you're a Liam Sharp fan and you don't know X-O Manowar, I think you're going to enjoy this comic book a lot more than me. In fact, I'll say this up front. If you've never read an X-O Manowar series and you're not an Eric Dacia fan, and this is your jumping on point, you're going to like this more than I do. Because I know the things that don't make sense with the character or his history or the suit of armor that he wears called Shanhara. Shanhara is the suit that Eric Dacia wears that he ended up stealing from the Vine and liberating his people. It turns out he was a Visigoth warrior that was kidnapped or enslaved, that's the better way to put it, by the Vine 1,000 years ago, taken into space, forced to work for 5 years, but in human time it ended up being 1,000 years. He ends up stealing the Shanhara armor, taking his people back to Earth, but it's 1,000 years later, and he has to find them a place where they can live. Basically, what Robert Venditti does in his X-O Manowar series, it's a retelling of the Exodus story, but in very exciting fashion. Shanhara, the armor, has its own personality, but it also has its own distinct skill set. There's a moment in this comic book story, and I guess I'll give away kind of the beginning of this. There's a group of aliens that are using a seer to watch what Eric Dacia is doing because they're interested in the armor. We've seen that story before. I'll get into that here in a little bit. And they're monitoring Eric Dacia, X-O Manowar, with the Shanhara armor, intercepting a comet that they believe is headed towards Earth. You would imagine that means it's really close to Earth, right? If it's going to actually hit the Earth, you imagine it has to be within our solar system or something like that. And also the Shanhara armor, when speaking to Eric while they're going to intercept it, is that is a comet. And then when he intercepts it, it explodes. They land on a planet that isn't in our solar system, which makes no sense whatsoever. What did they decide to go and intercept it, 1,000 light years away? Why would he care about it if it's that far away? None of that stuff made any sense. And then it turns out it's not a comet, it's a missile. There are a lot of objects in space, and I guess you could look at and be well, maybe that's a comet. A comet versus a missile that was made by an intelligent life form. Obviously, these aren't people. Well, maybe they're not. I don't want to spoil that part. But there's a missile, and it turns out that this group of aliens that's monitoring Eric Dacia, X-O Manowar, and they know he's called X-O Manowar because they want the armor, actually sent the missile to divert him so he would intercept it and land on this planet that's uninhabited. Basically, it's Hoth. It's an ice planet, but it's not in our solar system. He's not on Pluto or something like that, even though they don't consider that a planet anymore. The armor itself would have known immediately that is not a comet, it's a missile. And then they would have been well, what's their trajectory on this? Where did it actually come from? Maybe we should go and find the people that actually shot the missile that's 1,000 light years away from Earth and go intercept it there. So You can tell that Michael Conrad and Becky Cloonan are not smart. And when I say not smart, I pretty much mean stupid. They don't have any idea of what the armor itself is capable of and what it would take for them to go and intercept something and land on a planet that's not in our solar system, and how far away it would actually have to be. It's actually pretty ridiculous. It's like really stupid. So these aliens that are monitoring Eric Abdasia and actually bamboozled him, they fooled him into intercepting a missile that he thought was a comet to maroon him on a planet that's not in our solar system, have decided they want to go and steal the armor, but they know a lot about the armor. They should know that not everyone can inhabit it. Like, you have to be a special kind of person. Like, they've already done something where another alien race was out there looking for armors. It turns out there's like hundreds of these armors throughout the galaxies. Why would they go after the one that's inhabited by Conan the Barbarian? You know what I mean? The most fierce warrior in the entire galaxy, when there's armors out there that are certainly much easier to obtain, and certainly the users would have died by now, and they're just sitting there waiting to be discovered. Apparently these guys can just find armors anywhere, but they have to have Eric Abdasia's armor because I guess they're related to the Visigoth warriors. They try to do this tie, and it's just not very effective. I don't know what to feel about this. There's no action in this book. That's the big problem. X-O Manowar, Eric Abdasia, is a man of action. He's best used when he's actually in a fight, but there's only like 2 pages of action in the entire story, and the rest of it is him just like contemplating and talking to the armor. And the voice is really strange on Eric Abdasia. Half the time I thought it was Thor. It's like they had never read the Jim Shooter stuff or the Robert Venditti stuff or the Matt Kint stuff. They got the voices all wrong. But the art is good. The story is serviceable. But we have absolutely seen versions of this particular story multiple times already in X-O Manowar over the last 8 or 9 years. So if you're new to the character, I think you'll like this more than me. If you're new to the character, go and read the Robert Venditti run. It starts out with Carrie Nord. Tomas Giorello comes on at some point. Juan Jose Rip comes in and also illustrates it for a time. So they got some really good artists on it. But it's about 50 issues. There's a couple of tie-ins to some events. One of them being Harbinger Wars. One of them being Armor Hunters. They're absolutely phenomenal. Robert Venditti actually wrote Armor Hunters, which is a X-O Manowar event and really gives you a lot of backstory on the armor itself. Go and read that if you're not familiar with the character, and you're going to be much happier because it's a much better run. If you can't get your hands on that, the Matt Kint run after that is also very, very good until it's time for him to come back to Earth, because that was like, you could tell it wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to be out on this planet conquering it, and all of a sudden the leadership changed at Valiant. They sold the company and they needed him back on Earth to do the next event. So they just like brought him home out of nowhere, and it never made any sense. And the run just kind of goes downhill after that. But there's a lot of good X-O Manowar stuff out there with a lot of really, really good creators. In fact, my favorite comic book writer in the world, Robert Venditti, wrote what I consider to be the very best X-O Manowar story, the best run ever for the character. But the Jim Shooter stuff is absolutely fantastic. The Matt Kint stuff is really good, and the Cloonan stuff looks really good because Liam Sharp's illustrating it. But the story doesn't make any sense. It's a bit repetitive, and you can see they know nothing about science, the character, or really anything about Valiant Comics. They're just here for the paycheck, and that's kind of the bad thing. You can tell they don't really care about the character like the people that love the character. We don't get a lot of comic books out of Valiant right now. I really wish they were more selective with their creators, but you know, we are going to get to see the very first issue of X-O Manowar. Will we see anything after that? I'm not really sure, but if we do see a second issue, it'll be back out there in like June or July or something like that, because they're actually releasing comic books like quarterly or something.
Okay.
I actually got to talk to Robert Venditti for about an hour. We definitely went into X-O Manowar, why I love the series, and some of my questions about the run that he had. You haven't seen this interview. It's absolutely fantastic. This was a bucket list item right here. You don't see the video here. There's also a link in the video description.